Продовжуємо роботу.
We continue our work at Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Now we are going to speak about analysis of human rights violations in occupied Crimea in 2017. Our guests are Refat Chubarov, member of Parliament of Ukraine, chairman of the Mejlis of the Crimean Tatar people, Eskender Bariev, member of Mejlis of the Crimean Tatar, and chairman of the board of the Crimean Tatar Resource Center, and Elvir Sagirman, communications manager, Crimean Tatar Resource Center. Good afternoon, dear friends, dear journalists. We are really grateful that you have found time to hear to our presentation and to ask questions. And so 2017 passed, and how it influences Crimea, the victims, how and what human rights violations we faced in 2017 and what are the processes. We are going to speak about it, and we are going to show you the work of Mejlis organization, and our analysts, our lawyers try to systematize and to present graphs and figures. You will be able to see the overall picture of 2017 events, and then we will provide some results, and we would like to show what new prosecutions happened in Crimea and what we can expect in the future. Now I'd like to give the floor to the chairman of Mejlis and member of Eskender Bariev, who started this presentation. The organization he represents, this was a powerful organization that was founded at once after the occupation of Crimea. And for us, it is really important that Ukrainian society and international organizations timely get objective information about the situation in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the situation in Sevastopol, and that this information should be provided timely. These analytical materials that would show the depth of deformation that is ongoing in the next Crimea, next by Russia, and our partners. They should be aware, and when they take decisions, and they should force Russia to return to the framework of international law, and this should lead to punishment of rulers of the Russian Federation that have started the war against the civilized world when they attacked Ukraine and when they temporarily seized Crimea. And I would like that the analysis, I would like that the analytical report that will be presented, that it would provide information for Ukrainian society to citizens who reveal active position in order to share the opinion with them that those misfortunes that are in the non-controlled territories of Crimea, Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, that this requires the mobilization of Ukrainian society and systemic actions of Ukrainian power. And these catastrophes that are ongoing daily in Crimea or in the separate regions of the Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, that these catastrophes, they should have inspired our citizens that they should not inspire citizens. We want that on the example of this fight carried out by Crimean Tatars, all people who live in the temporarily occupied Crimea, those who preserve their dignity, they should be the example for Ukrainian politicians. And I would like to give the floor to Eskender. So you see the presentation on the screen, the analysis of violations of human rights in the occupied Crimea 2017. This analysis has several parts. One section divided into subsections, the basic human rights. The next one is the also there are two sections and then conclusions. So the principle is like this. It is formed as a report, it is compiled as a report of the international organization. So the first paragraph concerning victims. Last year we provided graphs and we wanted to show the correlation between activity of people and the dates that can lead to some activity, and in order to see the increase of dynamics and the fall of this dynamics. But we make conclusions that if we compare with the last year information, we see that these are connected with the dates and with the victims. So according to our data, we reveal that in 2017 we got 2 victims. So this is Vitaly Arsenyuk, 67-year-old resident of Jankoy. He was the member. He was involved in missionary activity. Why we put him in the category of victims? Because he was in the pre-trial detention facility, and after the court hearing he felt unwell and he died. And we believe that this person was persecuted, and they pressured him psychologically and physically, and he had limitations in his actions, and his right of liberty and security were violated. The second victim, and we believe that this is the veteran of national movement, the symbol of Jirkashka, and during the detention operation, during this operation, she died on site, and we believe that this person became a victim, and we believe that this veteran of national movement was killed by law enforcers, so-called law enforcers of the occupation authority. And also we study the circumstances of the sections in 2017. 2 Crimean Tatars went missing, Modusir Isaev, on the 26th of March in Belgorsky region near Alexeyevka village, and in some time his body was found. And in Veravush, he was found in the forest line near Korенnoye village of Krasnogorsk region. And the matter is, 2 these persons went missing, and then their bodies were found, and we do not know the circumstances. So we believe that 2 these people are the victims, and we continue to find information about the circumstances, and also we are interested how these cases are investigated by the occupation authority and whether criminals were found or not, whether those circumstances are really grounded, those circumstances in which they died, and we don't know. And we can, we have the right to speak about these people, but also from our side we continue to gather these circumstances, the circumstances of their death. And moreover, if you look at these processes, so the representatives of Crimean Tatar people went missing. So in this section, the illegal actions of occupation authorities and detentions, this is the next graph, and you may see during the months what number of people was detained and what number they were detained. And this, if you look at this graph, in principle, these detentions, they were systemic. The only thing, there was activity in April on the eve of 16th of May, and then there were one-person protests, and there is correlation with the dates, and they try to prevent some active actions by our compatriots. And also we see the process when people are trying to carry out peaceful gatherings or actions, and in relation to them force is applied. Next, these are interrogations. The next slide we see, and the previous slide and this slide, they look alike, because the people that were detained, they were brought for interrogation, and also we got information that relatives and acquaintances or colleagues were asked to come, and of those people. And also we see that FSB forms a systematic work to threaten, to intimidate local population and residents who live in the occupied territories. Elvir, please continue. So illegal actions of occupation power, these are searches. Searches are now systemic, and our graph shows this, and law enforcers break into houses, they act incorrectly, and law enforcers broke in those doors, and they put handcuffs on innocent people, and these actions of the law enforcers are grave violations. And here we may note that massive searches were in October and November. They detained 10 Tatar people, and they accused them in the Hizbut Tahrir participation. Also, they carried out searches in the houses of activists, those who highlighted the illegal actions of the law enforcers. And during the year also there were raids in the houses of Tatar people, and we do not know the exact number of houses attended by law enforcers. Also, illegal actions are arrests. Here we should note that we mean that this is the we mean taken into custody. In 2017, the occupation authorities continued to arrest activists and open politically motivated cases. Here we may say that these were the witnesses, and they also were detained. And in 2016, there were 16 political prisoners, and criminal investigations were started against them, and we will tell about the results later. So the dynamic graph is the right for fair trial and proper legal assistance. And now in Crimea, legal system is not efficient, and this graph shows that in Crimea they carry out work to forcefully detain detain the activists, and they continued the terms of pre-trial detention. They do not allow the relatives and acquaintances to court hearings, and also there were cases when the activities of the lawyers also were interfered with. So also there is the violation of right for peaceful gatherings, and occupation authorities didn't allow to hold events connected with the Shevchenko anniversary, and they rejected the application for this event, and also the events concerning the anniversary of Tatar people deportation, and also they were asked not to hold such events. And as I've noted, under some pretexts, they tried to, and on the 20th of August in Belgorsk region, they circled the cowboy base, and they didn't allow Tatar people to enter. Also, we see that in October we see the increase in the number of violations, 35 cases we recorded, and this is connected with the fact that Crimea Tatars went to one-man protests against the repression, and law enforcers actively detained these people. On this day, we knew about 35 cases of detention, but in fact, the number of those in relation to whom this right was violated, this number is bigger. And also there were cases when the football matches were stopped, and also the organizers, they try to trial these organizers of the football matches, and also violation of right of freedom of movement. And when we compiled this graph, we meant that this violation is in the illegal detention of people. So also the detention of witnesses, and also encirclement by law enforcers who say that they carry out some exercises and they prevent movement of people, and also the forceful notes on not leaving, and also this Mustafa Girmiji Almuasanov's right in this were violated, and his home arrest is continued, and also the rights of Ukrainian activists in Baluch, Semenych, Kitайskих, their rights also were violated, and also the second section, the violations against the domain freedoms, and the next is illegal escorting of the prisoners. They were brought to, they were transferred to Russian Federation from Crimea. These people were brought to Russian Federation in 2016. So in this case, this transfer in the territory of Russian Federation, this is one more violation of human rights, and these actions are not allowed by international law. Then the right for the achievement of the highest physical and psychological level of health. So we were not able to encompass everything and to gather all the evidence, but we were oriented on the main people who are politically persecuted or they are political prisoners. That's why, if you may see here, there is in this category, they violate the rights of political prisoners who are in custody, and also they do not provide proper medical assistance. In the cases of Hizbut Tahrir and Vijayakashka case, also this right was violated in relation to Baluch, Merov, and other political prisoners who were forcefully sent to the hospital for psychological examination. They continue to carry out this examination, and our our compatriots are now in the psychiatric hospital for this expertise. So this right for the highest, the achievement of highest level of physical and psychological help. And in the JHK case, there are serious problems. Oksana Chupucha, and they are not provided with proper medical assistance, despite the fact that their lawyers submit petitions, and there were claims to the head of the pretrial detention facility that despite all the factors, they continue to illegally detain these people in custody. And the next fines for 2017, our compatriots were fined for the sum of more than 5 million rubles, and they fined 104 people, and 99 of them are representatives of Tatar people. And the highest fine was the 300,000 rubles for the post, for the comment on social media. And the next one is the case of Ukrainian subversives. Shtiblikov was also fined, and also there were fines from 5 to 30,000 rubles. So the maximum fine was 3.5 million rubles, and it's about Suleimanov case, who is now illegally in custody, and also continue our presentations. So also they recruit people for military service, and the resolutions of UNO also stated about it. And Crimea, they carry out military exercises, and in 2017 there were 15 cases, but in fact there are many more, but these cases are well known. And also Russian Federation, as we know, carry out illegal call-up, and the number of recruits increases. In 2017, 5,000 Crimeans were called up, and here it is impossible to follow it because this data is only law enforcement bodies in Crimea know about it, and we do not have this data. And here we should say that starting 2017, some of conscripts, they go to serve in the territory of Russia, and in 2017 there were 670 people like this, and this is the violation of Article 51 of the Geneva Convention. And I only want to add in this section that we can monitor the data based on data of occupation authority, the commissariats that provide information, because we do not have such opportunities to follow this in names, because this is a difficult process. But our task is to inform people that to serve in occupation forces is not desirable, and they should find the way how not to do this. So there are different ways, and we know that there are some criminal cases, and some people go to the mainland Ukraine in order not to serve in this occupation forces. Next one. And also there are other human rights violations in the peninsula. Journalists' rights are systematically violated. There were cases when the journalists were detained. They were not allowed to be in the court hearing, and also video and the footage was forbidden, and they violate the right for the access to media. And also during the year there were some acts of vandalism on the cemetery, in the mosques, and also the Bakhchisarai mentioned is also violated. So also they violate the right they do not allow people to read the Quran in prison, and also they violated land and property rights of these people. So the conclusions, we made these graphs, and during the whole period, as of today, political prisoners are 61 people, and they are people who are persecuted, that are in the pre-trial detention facilities, or those that are under home arrest, and 38 of them are the Crimean Tatars. The next slide. So on the next slide, you may see in 2017, new political prisoners, 16 out of them, 15 are Crimean Tatars. 4 people were arrested based on affiliation to Levit Jamaat organization. That happened in 2017. And others were arrested on suspicion of affiliation to Hizb ut-Tahrir, and also others were arrested in the case of Kashgar. And we see here that the occupation authority tries to show illegality among activists of Tatar people, and they have case of extortion, and also there was a case of Ukrainian subverter. One person was sentenced to 1 year for posts on social media, and also people who went missing. The overall number of people who died in occupation, as I have mentioned, if we add, we have 16 plus 2, and we try to find circumstances, we cannot say it for sure. And out of this overall number, the representatives of Tatar people, 13 people, and the overall number of victims in 2017, these are 4 victims, we've named them, and out of them Crimean Tatar, 3 people. So overall number of those who went missing in the period of occupation went missing 16 people. As of today, out of this number, 12 are Crimean Tatars. Overall number of detentions in 2017 in this case. 286 in 2017, out of them Crimean Tatars, 248. Interrogation in 2017, 340. And out of them, 286 were the representatives of Crimean Tatar people. And the searches in 2017, 61 was in the houses of Crimean Tatars. So we see the trends and correlation. And the next one, the arrests, they carried out 46 arrests. Out of them, 42 representatives of Crimean Tatars were arrested. So these are both administrative and criminal arrests. And also fines were imposed on 104 people. Out of them, 99 are Crimean Tatars. And the right for fair trial and proper legal assistance, 515. There were court hearings. No, these are not court hearings. These are the cases of violations. So they rejected the appeal, or they continued detention. So there can be many violations in one hearing. So there can be rejected petitions and extended terms of keeping in custody. So also the right for peaceful gatherings, 80 times of violations, right for freedom of movement, 33 violations, and also illegal escorting of political prisoners, 21 case those who were transferred in Crimea and in Russia, and also the right to achieve the highest level of physical and psychological state. This right was violated 38 times. You can find it on this internet resource. You can analyze this report. If you have some proposals, please, you can provide them. So based on this analysis, we do not say that this is this is about all the cases. Maybe some information is missing. Maybe we're not able to follow some information. So we address our compatriots in the occupied Crimea. If something happened, some violations happened to someone, some violations of human rights in the occupied territories, please inform us. Because sometimes we get information about these cases in a year or in 2 years. So people believe that if they inform us, some tough measures will be implemented, physical and psychological measures will be applied against them. So also the articles, our compatriots are tried. So this is the article 20.1, and this is the propaganda of symbolics of extremist organizations, and also inciting of hatred article, and also there is a case of extortion, so-called extortion, and many Vijayakashki case. This is the symbol of the fight of the Crimean people, and also Article 163, extortion made by a group of people, and they also this is also about extremism and inciting ethnic hatred. And I would like to note that we see that occupation authority continues to pressure our compatriots, and it carry out aggressive actions, and based on the materials we've presented, we can come to conclusion that occupation machine continues to carry out repressions against Crimean Tatar people and Ukrainians. And now I would like to give the floor to Refat Chubarov. So I would like to say several words, and we have a lot of materials and a lot of opportunities for you to look them through. And in Brussels, a group of our colleagues headed by Mustafa Djemilev, they carry out a number of events, and they highlight the situation in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and in Sevastopol. And in these meetings, they express clear position of Mejlis of the Crimean people. That is, there shouldn't be any dialogue with Putin and Russian politicians before Russia starts to implement those requirements that are in the many resolutions and other documents of international organizations, starting with the resolution of the General Assembly of UNO and the resolution of the European Parliament, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, OSCE, and other organizations. So in Brussels, Mustafa Djemilev, Elvir, Umerov, Tamila Tasheva, one of the heads of Crimea SOS, and there are several other compatriots from Crimea. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to inform people. And yesterday there was a Kremlin report placed in on all the media. This was the report of the U.S. Treasury, and there are expectations that we have concerning the increase of sanctions, and some European politicians, they believe that in order to motivate Putin to sit at the negotiation table, so they believe that some compromises should be made. But we believe that we are saying that any compromises with Putin there shouldn't be any compromises with Putin before he leaves Crimea. So this only will motivate him for further repressions. And our friends there, and we are here, we want to say that we should not negotiate with Putin before he
before he withdraws from Ukraine. Now we would like to finish and to thank two directors of Crimean Tatar Resource Center, to Eskender Bariev, two members of Crimean Tatar Mejlis, to their analysts. Thank you, Elvir, Sagirman, for your comprehensive presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now it's Q&A session. If you have questions, please introduce yourself. Good morning. I'm Serikov Sergey, reporter for newspaper Culture and Life. Actually, I am friend of Andrei Shikun, and I was Maidan activist and participated in demonstrations against occupation of Crimea, and I knew Oleg Sentsov before he was taken into custody, and I have met you before too. Well, so my question is, I was present at Kurultai on the 20th of March 2014 in Bakhchisarai, and I knew Vijay Kashka and a number of other Crimean Tatars activists. I supported them, and I continue supporting those who continue their struggle. And today I would like to make a comment that unfortunately we can't achieve anything by peaceful demonstrations in Crimea. And these activists were ready to defend their homeland. They needed our support at that time, more active support. And I'm afraid there is no peaceful solution for the case of Crimea. Perhaps if the Russian army will be used against Ukraine, Crimean Tatars can be seen by occupational powers as enemies, and I think Crimean Tatars activists need our support. This is the first thing that I wanted to say, and I addressed to Mustafa Aha. I suggest some actions in honor of activist Vijay Kashka. There will be a monument to her near in Kherson region, and there will be also monuments to Ukrainian soldiers who died in Crimea. I hope for your support. I would like to make one comment. In fact, there is a number of issues that could be addressed more closely, and I think that this requires a particular discussion. And I would like also only say that the issue of liberation of Crimea requires a number of steps on the international area as well as economic steps. And of course we should analyze the military dimension of this issue as well. But well, let's stop here for today. maybe more questions about the report. Please introduce yourself. Nizbar Tai. My question is to Refat Chubarov. Could you please clarify? You mentioned that as long as Russia stays in Crimea, there must be no compromises and no negotiations. And as far as I understand, you say that there must be no any negotiations as long as repressions against Crimean Tatars continue. And you know that Turkey is negotiating with Russia on this issue. What do you think about that? And secondly, there are many human rights violations in Crimea. But how it looks like comparing to the situation on Ukraine's mainland? Because on the one hand, we hear people telling that Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians are like one nation, but in practice, you know, there are interesting details. Well, I'll start from the second questions. Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars are politically a one nation. We are living in one country, and we do our best to make our country stronger, sovereign and independent, and that every citizen in our country had equal rights, and that we were equal in a European family of peoples. So in this sense, we are one political nation, and this is the answer to your question. What about the first question? I'm afraid you did not really understand me. I have been addressing this issue before, and I wouldn't like to go into details once again. I mean, negotiations with Mr. Putin. I mean that we should not talk about lifting sanctions of Russia, because there were claims that we should make a step towards Russia and take away the number of sanctions in order to encourage them to comply with Minsk agreements, etc., etc. Or the Minister of Parliamentary Assembly of Europe once mentioned at one of the last events of the Parliamentary Assembly, and there were a number of other statements where they were telling that Russia's membership in the Parliamentary Assembly and in fact participation in the voting processes in Parliamentary Assembly should be restored. But in fact, Russia did not follow any of resolutions of the United Nations. Russia has ignored all the recommendations. They did not do anything about every resolution of the UN resolutions. Russia ignored all resolutions of the OSCE. So Russia did not do anything to change the situation which actually provoked sanctions against Russia. So I think lifting sanctions is in this situation is unacceptable. We should not restore Russia's rights in the Council of Europe, because that would show them that they won't be punished for violations, human rights violations in Crimea. One more question. Varvara Katos from UA Crimea. Could you tell, please, are there any negotiations between Russia and Ukraine about probably exchange of hostages, including Crimean Tatars, which are in custody now? well, in any situation, even if there is military action, we should continue negotiations if this can save someone's life. I don't know all the details about all negotiations that are going on between Ukraine and Russia with participation of Ukrainian political actors and officials, etc. But as far as I'm concerned, these negotiations have never stopped, and they go on within the Minsk platforms, involving such people as Irina Gerashchenko and her colleagues. They are always raising this issue of situation of Ukrainian hostages, both servicemen who are held captive in Donbass and all political prisoners, and these issues are constantly raised. And we, as the Mejlis of Crimean Tatars people, we are negotiating with many international organizations and leaders of other nations. I had such talks with representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France, and at every meeting we discuss this with ambassadors of the countries which can influence opinion and position of representatives of Russia, and we have such negotiations with Turkey. Thank you for your report. Let's finish.